Now, scientists have now released a dire warning about the environment when it comes to climate change. It appears that now, according to the World Meteorological Organization, that levels of carbon dioxide in the Earth's atmosphere have reached an all-time high. Now, according to the scientists, CO2 levels have reached about 407.8 parts per million in the year of 2018. That's up from 405.5 parts per million in 2017. That is a marked increase. Now, the reported change was similar to that observed between 2016 and 2017. Um, and that's just above the average over the last decade. So now, while that might not seem like a big increase, again, this all adds up, right? In the atmosphere, we're supposed to be at 350 parts per million. That was that was the issue. Like that was the number, the magic number that we're supposed to stay at. 350. That's why 350.org. That's what they're named after, right? That's the organization that studies climate change and fights against fossil fuels. We're supposed to stay at 350. We've been over 400 now. We blew right past that. That gone, right? So now, again, this is huge. We were supposed to rein in warming. We were supposed to, try to prevent the worst impacts and effects of global climate change by staying at 350. Again, we went right past it. Now, the report also mentions that other heat trapping gases, including methane, a lot from fracking, and nitrous oxide, also saw surges in concentration levels over the past decade. Now, look, it's not just here in America that we've seen an increase. Look, as some of the other governments have switched over to natural gas, we've also seen this increase in methane. Now, methane doesn't last in the atmosphere as much as carbon, but it's about 9 times more potent. So that's really important. Not only that, but as of late, we have seen right wing leaders, for example, in Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, basically cut down a lot of trees, open up the rainforest for logging, the Amazon. And once those trees are gone, they really don't come back. And once it's turned into pastures and farmland, okay, or for mining, and so the Amazon is known as the lungs of the world, and so they filter out carbon dioxide, put out oxygen, and so we have less trees, we have more CO2, and then of course we put out more fossil fuels, more CO2. Bit of a problem here, right? I mean, right now we're treating the Earth as if it's some sort of giant garbage can, and so that's disastrous, right? Now the group reported that there's been a 43% increase in total radiative forcing because of this. And what is that? That is the warming effect on the climate by long-lived greenhouse gases since 1990. So since 1990, warming has increased by 43%. Disaster. Now, according to World Meteorological Secretary General Petari Talas, says, quote, there's no sign of slowdown, let alone a decline in greenhouse gas concentration in the atmosphere, despite all the commitments under the Paris Climate Agreement. We need to translate the commitments into action and increase the level of ambition for the sake of the future welfare of mankind. Well, look, um, we're not going to do that. Again, Donald Trump, one of the leaders, the leader of America, decided to pull the U.S. out of the climate agreement. And of course, you have countries like Russia, China, not interested, right, in doing anything about it. So that's disastrous. Now, the UN Environmental Program also released its own report, warning that if global greenhouse gas emissions don't decrease by 7.6% every year over the next decade, the world will not be on track to reach the temperature goal of the Paris Agreement. And again, we're not doing that. We're actually getting worse. We have seen an increase. Again, we have doubled down under Trump, uh, coal, oil, natural gas, and of course, Trump also rails against renewable energy like solar and even claimed that windmills cause cancer. Yeah, windmill cancer. So, yikes. Now, I never thought we would see the president of the United States, who's supposed to be super smart, believing in insane things, but here we are. And you've got little pressure on countries like China, like I said, in Russia, India to decarbonize as well. And look, you could argue uh, very effectively, actually, that what we have here in America was basically an unfair playing field when it comes to us versus the world. And what I mean by that is that we have had a longer time in America to transition away from fossil fuels and renewable energies to do something about it. In fact, we've known about climate change for probably over 100 years. Um, Back in the early, 1900s, we were talking about 1800s, we were talking about climate change. And scientists were saying, hey, maybe there's this thing, right, called climate change that we might want to be concerned about. And then ExxonMobil, of course, they had known since the 1950s, 1960s, when they did their own studies, all these fossil fuel companies. And what have they done? Nothing about it because it's all about short term profit. And so, I mean, obviously, super disastrous, right? And look, we've had a longer time to do this, whereas you had Russia, not Russia, but China and India, for example, newly developing countries. And so they haven't had as much time in order to get in transition over to these, you know, uh, renewable types of energy. And I believe China is trying because they're having a huge, huge problem with air quality and Beijing, especially. And so you could say it's not fair, but this is a situation that we're in, and all of our countries need to go and figure out a way to embrace more new, alternative forms of energy, renewable energy, and to be able to cut emissions massively. And you know who could be a leader on that? The United States. We could actually be a leader, but instead, we are not the leader. Uh, we have decided to lead the world in embracing climate denialism. And of course, that has a lot to do with money and politics. These large corporations like ExxonMobil first creating these think tanks, influencing public opinion on this, muddying the water. Corporate media, who allows it to happen, and of course, politicians that are paid off by big oil and gas companies to try to pass laws and reduce regulation. So that's what's going on here. And we have a massive problem, and we need to do something about it. And we need we need everybody on board, every country, every nation, every world leader, um, and we need the best minds, and we need the best technology, and we need the best commitment to get it done. Unfortunately, there is no political will in which to do it. Unfortunately, we are stuck in the most short-sighted, selfish mindset, and we're going to end up dooming future generations the burden of our generation's greed and commitment to short-term profit. And look, it's not really like the individual. You might be thinking, what can I do about it? Or I didn't do this. And look, the thing is that you have 100 corporations that are responsible for over 70% of all emissions. And so it is the large companies. It's not you and your paper straw or your plastic straw, I should say. Uh, and it's not you driving around your normal car just to get to work. It's these giant corporations that refuse to do anything about it because of all the money that's in politics. And so I think it's time that we hold those polluters accountable as well as the politicians that take these bribes. Climate collapse is a real problem. We are facing this. It threatens a lot of things: food supplies, biodiversity, etc. And we have to commit to doing, I think, a Green New Deal. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYT Nation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.